Hello YouTube, Todd back from Solid Shell Security, and I'm here with another Python tutorial. We are going to talk about functions. I kind of touched basis on functions in the last tutorial for a quick second because I showed you guys the length function and how we used it and what it does, which we had a variable called word and we set it to hello, and we wanted to get the length of the word hello, and it equals 5. So Python has built-in functions, but we can also build our own functions. So what is the purpose of a function? To automate tasks, ability to call up the same code when needed, so it automates tasks. It gives us the ability to call up some code when needed, and it also just kind of organizes it pretty nice, especially whenever you get into large programs, like whenever you're doing things that will on this. Trying to think of the best way to explain this. It organizes code like whenever you start getting into big complex things, such as let's say we're going to build a web recon tool as an example, and we want it to do the following things. We want it to give the IP address of a domain, port scan domain, resolve host, grab whois information. So let's say we have a tool like that. Well, there's going to be a lot of code that goes into it, and the user may not exactly want the user might want to just get the IP address of a domain. The user might only want to port scan a domain. He might not want to grab the whois information. So we can do a very simple text interface where it asks the user what operation to do. So if the user wants to port scan, then we can have the program call up the function to port scan. So we can build our own functions. It organizes code, and it allows us to be flexible, because if the only Python programming you know is what I taught you, you've done what's called kind of procedural programming, where it literally does everything you type. The program does everything you tell it to. Well, in this, with functions, you kind of get into more the user has control over you're giving the user control over what the program can do. Another example of a function is like if you create a program, let's say like Microsoft Paint. Let's say you're writing a program like that. Well, you could have a function that you can have the user call up a function of code which sets how big the window is going to be. So functions are very, very important to programming. It gives us a whole lot more flexibility with programming. So really, really basic program that we're gonna write here to start off with. In Python, it always starts, you have to define a function, so we use def space, then you name it. I'm going to create one called text, and it's going to print hello. And then we're going to save this desktop, python tuts function.py or function, misspelt it, and then we are going to run it. And if you notice, it didn't do anything, and the reason being for that is we wrote the program, and whenever we run the Python compiler, it completely ignores the function until we call it up. So we haven't called it up yet, so now we are going to call it up. And as you can see, we ran it, and it prints out hello. And to call it up, we just simply do the function name and parentheses. The parentheses are going to take arguments. In this program, we're not going to take arguments. So another thing that it helps with is it automates tasks, and it also helps us to keep us from rewriting code. So let's say we're going to make a simple program where the computer asks a question, the user answers it, and then the computer's going to give the person what they answered back. So we're going to do print what is your name, answer equals raw underscore input, print answer, print what is your age, answer equals raw underscore input, and also I forgot my parentheses up here, print answer. So we run it. My name's Todd, say 18, and the program works fine. It does what we need it to do. However, we can simplify this program. We can make it, instead of having to rewrite this, we can consolidate it into a function. So we're going to create a function to kind of automate the task and to also keep us from having to rewrite the same code over and over. So we're going to do a function, and we're going to call it QA for question and answer, and we're going to do answer equals raw underscore input, might want to spell it right, and print answer. Then we're going to come here and we're going to call up the functions. Now let's run it. Does the same thing. And if we were to go on and do where do you live, so instead of having to write this underneath every print statement we have, we can just simply create a function and call it up whenever we need it. So save it, run it again, Todd 18 USA, bam. As I get a little bit more into showing you things with Python, we'll be using more functions, and you'll see how beneficial they are. Kind of like with the for loops, it's really about just getting into doing things. So I'm going to leave you with this, and this is actually going to lead up into the next tutorial. So I hope you guys got the basic understanding, practice with functions, and probably get started on the next video here shortly.